Welcome back, one and all, to the EMEA Masters Summer 2023, where we are covering Group A with myself, Just Oshin, and the absolutely delightful Dagda. If you want to catch out some of the group stage of... Sorry, let me start that again. If you want to catch... Thank you, man. I really need that support. If you want to catch some of the games in Group C, which is with Carmine Corp, Matchco, I believe it's Natives and Anorthosis, excuse me. They are over on twitch.tv/ESLOL. They are going to be covering those games. We're still going to stick with Group A, so do check that out there. But we're coming into our third game of the day, and we got ourselves a position now where we're looking at two teams that are looking very differently, but probably not from perspectives we expected them to be in.
Yeah, I mean, at least coming through. I mean, Orbit, well, it kind of feels like you win the early stages of the game today, and you end up in a terrible spot.
It's a curse.
Orbit actually won the early stages of the game, and just like Oshin fumbled that last sentence, they fumbled the mid-game really, really difficultly. So as Istanbul Wildcat got into the mid-game, that's really where they managed to come back and pick this one up. I think a huge amount of that was coming from the fact that they were better prepared with like lane states, and then being able to, as we see here, like quickly collapse onto moments, whereas Orbit were just lagging that a little bit further behind. So I think if they can try and clean that up coming into this game up against GTZ, I think that's really where we're going to see things at least go a different direction. But when we're looking towards GTZ, they had a fantastic performance here coming in towards the later portion of the game. Like, it did go a bit awry. I think Nightmare's going way too aggressive at moments, but the fact that they're able to settle down into these team fights, I think that's where they're going to try and look for success again.
I mean, like, the big thing is that for GTZ, it was the 5v5s they thrived in. They were absolutely fantastic and clinical in those moments. So for me, it does feel like this is actually potentially a GTZ favorite, because we saw when the 5v5s came out in that last series for Orbit, it just didn't really work out for them. So right now, it's definitely a kind of a toss-up of how, you know, either of these teams are going to be able to perform. But I do feel like GTZ are going to be feeling so good coming into this one now, knowing that they just took down Bisons.
Yeah, I think that's the big one, is that the fact that GTZ managed to get the win is going to have them riding high coming into this. Whereas for Orbit, it's trying to go back to the drawing board thinking, man, we could have had that. Like, we had these early leads. We just got to try and clean it up. And when I do look at Orbit, I think a large portion of this is going to be trying to fix some of the wrongs that I think we saw Bisons do in this game. Like, not putting priority on towards Dragons, trying to force these earlier fights before you get that late game scaling coming in. That is probably what you should have been trying to focus on. But as you come in here, you can see Group A, the way it stands at the moment, the Denizbank, Istanbul Wildcats, and GTZ Esports sitting 1-0 at the top of the group.
I mean, look, if you said to GTZ that after the first game you'll be 1-0 with a very kind of decent likelihood that you will be 2-0 before you face the Wildcats, you would take that any day of the week. There is no questions over that. But we got to see now what the Ultra Liga #1 can do. We got to see if they can kind of fight this one back and bring themselves up to kind of parity, because if they can get a win against GTZ and they do have themselves that kind of 1-1 scoreline, that's when the series all start to get a little bit more muddied, a little bit more kind of chaotic, and we really start to move our shift towards day number 2 of this group, which will be in 2 days' time.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's going to be incredibly interesting to see how it does end up panning out. I mean, if you could be GTZ Esports, your first time in the group stage of EMEA Masters, and suddenly you find yourself 2-0 up after day 1, you are going to be thrilled. But it is a long road ahead of them. They do have to see if they can try and take down Orbit, who, as we saw, I mean, their bot lane played incredibly well in the last game. And for me, Nightmares was definitely a big focal point of, look, this isn't going so hot. So I think if we are looking at this squad, I want to see Avra and Nightmares clean up what was the 2v2.
Yeah, absolutely. The early stages there wasn't really working out for the side of GTZ, but I gotta give props where props are due. I think Avra stepped up when he needed to most, and you know, maybe a couple of question marks over the Zeri build. A lot of people will go Navori, maybe a lot of people go more towards the, you know, kind of like, again, that kind of not towards the IE as such so early, but it worked out. Having that extra little bit of damage, having those extra potential crits really did work out, especially in that one midline fight. So we'll wait to see how that kind of, you know, kind of transitions into the next draft. But for Orbit, again, like you said, I think the big thing that I want to see from them is that their mid lane was very lacking in that last one. I think Roizen really looked very, very rusty, shall we say, on that Seraphine. Whereas I think Niraman on the Tristana looked fantastic for himself in that early game, as well as Prime on the Camille. So there's definitely, you know, ways that they can come back and clean up that game that they just lost to and make it a more of a win in this one.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that Roizen has an absolute champion notion, like, and likes to play his very much style of game, where he's playing like off meta things. Like, you see a lot of Ziggs mid, the Swains, like even as Xerath and Malzahar Shogat mid games there as well. It's just a case of like, he does like to go quite off meta, but I think there are at times where it's like, okay, this is great to do so, but if the Seraphine isn't able to facilitate a lot of what you want to do, or, you know, you've got your bot lane going over aggressive and then they're not in a position to try and deal damage, that's where it comes back to bite you. So I'll be curious to see exactly what the game plan is here. If they want to go for that more, I don't want to say single target threat because, single damage threat, because they did have the Camille there who was still doing a lot, but it's just a case of like, how exactly do you want to try and make this work for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, for GTZ, I think they're going to be feeling so good right now. And I do think that they had a little bit of extra time, but this is like the perfect opportunity to have 2 back-to-back games, especially as you're coming in as the quote-unquote underdogs coming in from the play-ins. But you want to keep that momentum going. You want to keep that kind of, you know, synergy happening. You want to continue that into the next game as soon as you possibly can. So Orbit's got to find themselves, you know, some more opportunities. And I think that if the top lane goes into a tank matchup again, I mean, Prime did exceptionally well when it was a, you know, carry versus carry, but if it's into a tank, it doesn't really matter if he gets ahead.
I mean, I'm still happy out to see Prime go back towards the Camille or something along those lines into like the tank matchup, because as we said, like CPM is kind of just I play Ornn, I play Sion, I do good. Like that kind of is his game plan, right?
Thumbs up.
And I think having that carry into that actually gives you a ton of threat on the side lane and even a lot of backline threat as well, which is why I love seeing Camille come back into the meta, because she has that multifaceted style to her. But I think the biggest problem is just a case of like, can you actually set up the fight so you are in a favorable position? So you're not like waiting on your mid and support to come up to the fight because you think you got a pick, but there's suddenly 5 members of the enemy team there.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see now. GTZ already putting in those bans towards Prime, getting rid of that Fiora straight away. And the funny thing is, I feel like GTZ have kind of said, look, regardless of meta, we're going to ban away the things we don't like. They did that in the last game as well against Bisons. They just said, look, regardless of the quote-unquote red side, blue side meta and all that kind of power picks and stuff like that, they don't want certain things on the board. They'll just get rid of them.
And I think that is the case, especially when you're playing a very specific style. It's like, look, we don't care if you get some of these like Tristana mids or the Ivorns or these kind of things. It's like, we need to make sure that CPM isn't up against the Fiora and the Camille and the carries that we were talking about, because they're actually going to be massive threats that we don't really want to try and deal with in the side lane. We nearly saw it run away from them in the last game, so it does make a lot of sense. Ornn still going to be taken away though from CPM, and now as we start to go through, Rel still up and available, Xayah been left up and available for the first time today, and that is immediately going to be taken.
Yeah, big pick there. And again, GTZ saying, look, we're going to get rid of the top lane. We don't want Prime to have all of the power in this lane that can, you know, kind of lead to a snowball away from us. So the Rumble, the Camille, the Fiora, all taken away. 4 top lane bans in total, all taken off the board. And now GTZ, they could look to try and, you know, get themselves a very similar composition that they did last time. Again, I don't really see an issue with them going towards something like this Syndra to say, look, we can get Heroic to that mid game, get him up to that big spike where he's still just going to be a threat onto the AD carry.
And I'm curious what the answer is for Avra as well. We saw this area immediately taken last time. I think the Kai'Sa could be an option here because the double poke is incredibly strong. Even just like AD Kai'Sa is still quite strong. Like we did actually see nerfs to AP Kai'Sa, which I was kind of surprised to see in the last game that we still got that build. But actually, yeah, it looks like it's just going to be the Zeri once more. So happy to go back towards this pick that he had such a good game on.
Yep, really did. I mean, look, for GTZ, you're going to get pretty much the exact same draft right now. You're going to potentially be able to get the Sion as well on the next pick, ban away even more top laners, to be perfectly honest. If you really wanted to, you don't even have to ban the Nautilus because you know the Xayah Rakan's going to be locked in here. So we'll wait to see what they want to go for. But for the moment, it's going to be Orbit kind of locking in that Lovers duo, giving Nurman and the bot lane kind of priority to Lovers duo, gives them so much kind of pressure. But like we saw in the last one, that doesn't mean a lot when you don't really do much in the mid game.
I'm curious if Orbit actually try to predict the side and go for something like the Gwen here for Prime. Just try to go, look, we want to get some sort of carry top laner here that still is a threat in fights and can work out, or if you just try and fall back to your jungler. Because if you end up in a position where you're able to keep time in check, that could work out. But actually, I'm going to take the Ziggs for Roizen. So wow, not what I was expecting at all. I'm surprised to see the party on that because realistically, I did think that, you know, you'd get the Sion here or maybe a jungle pick, but and you're more than likely not going to see a ban go towards the Ziggs. You're more than likely going to see things like the Gwen and that kind of stuff that can actually go well into the Sion. So I'm kind of surprised to see the Ziggs put in as high a priority.
I mean, look, you just mentioned it there, but GTZ can now feel more kind of proud to say, look, the Jax, the Gwen potentially banned away, get 5 bans into Prime and kind of say, look, cool, we're happy with the rest of the champions you might have up your sleeve, and that's totally fine, but we want to get rid of these OPs straight off the bat. So wait to see now where the side of Orbit want to take their bans. They could look to try and take away some of the supports, you know, things that can work very well with Abra. But like we said, Nightmares, had a little bit of a nightmare in the last one, but getting rid of the Kindred, potentially the Viego as well, could be the better route for them.
Yeah, I feel like we'll get the... Oh, actually, going to be the... Already, I thought it'd be the Gwen ban coming through here, which would make things a little bit easier, but obviously CPM kind of having flashbacks to what happened in that last one. Gwen, Viego may be the option. Maybe you are actually worried about a Jarvan, though, here as well. I think trying to remove Engage is probably your better option. I know Time does get the Kindred banned away against him a lot, so I can kind of see that option, but... It does definitely feel like a Jarvan or something that's going to play Engage could be good. Poppy also kind of fitting into that, yeah.
Yeah, well, Poppy taken off the board there, so they will have the Viego, the Jarvan available to them, and again, well, they want to try and, get that counter pick. It looks like they do, so picking up the support here. And again, like we said, we want to see a little bit more from Nightmares to kind of... Maybe it was just the Braum kind of priority didn't really kind of fit in his wheelhouse. The Alistar should give him a little bit more survivability all in all, or maybe they flip the script completely and go towards a Lulu.
I mean, Lulu does work well, right? Like, Zeri Lulu, I loathe to say it. It's been great for a long time. But also, it's good into Rakan, right? So as soon as Rakan tries to go in, you polymorph him, he has a miserable time. So it does make sense. This one I'm interested to see, because I've been waiting to see Aatrox really picked up on this patch, and I'm just not going to see it, so I'm going to keep my mind out. I actually think...
You broke the cardinal rule, Doctor.
I think the Aatrox would be sick, especially into the Sion. You get to play at range, you get a ton of damage, great chase down. And it kind of fits into what Orbit are setting up here, where it's like, hey, we have range. We have some good poke coming through with the Ziggs. You have some good like follow-up coming through from the Xayah. And the Ziggs is kind of saying, look, you now have to play into us. You have to try and get this engaged down, otherwise you're going to get a ton of poke. You've also got great setup now for Severo with this Vi, so you kind of got that 1-2 combo of Vi ult into the Ziggs ult. So I think when you're looking at Orbit, they know exactly how they want to try and play this out. It's GTZ now kind of going, okay, well, how do we try and break this open? How do we try and find something a bit new? For a jungle, again, I think Jarvan could honestly be a decent answer here. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else you kind of fall back to in this position. That could also work. Again, it's kind of dive situation where it's like play to get access onto the Ziggs and set up then for the rest of your team.
And not only does it give you access to things like the Ziggs or even an ultimate out of Nuraman, but the Paranoia does give someone like Azeri just so much freedom to be able to kind of kite backwards, get into a position without having to fully disengage. That was always kind of the way you dealt with Azeri, was to get her away from a fight, but having that Paranoia can make it a little bit easier.
It also makes it very difficult for the Ziggs to play, right? Because a lot of the Ziggs is play at range, throw your bouncing bombs, get your big ultimate off. If you can't see where people are moving or even where the Vi is gone to, you're just kind of lobbing it into thin air and hoping that it hits something, right? So I think the Nocturne actually a really good pick here for Time. It's just going to be a case of, can GTZ kind of slow the game down again to get to that late game scaling? Or are we going to see kind of a similar thing where you get Ryzen, who's able to have this opportunity to like take towers, push waves, you get the Aatrox in a good matchup in top lane, and then you're able to use those push advantages to start to lean into Rift Heralds, into Dragons and these kind of things.
Yeah, and again, like we said, the early game from Orbit in the first one was fantastic. Their first game against Wildcats, they had a great early game, really put down the pressure, got themselves plenty of advantages. It was the mid to late game's decision-making that really started to unravel this team. And it was, again, the opposite for the side of GTZ. They had a bit of an incredibly rough early game against Bisons, but slowly but surely, they got themselves back into the board. So, and like I said in the second game today for GTZ, they're very happy picking Comfort. They've seen the Syndra, the Zeri, and the Sion all picked on that red side in the exact same order because they say, look, we know how to play around this. We know we can make it work.
And I think that is what works in a lot of situations at EMEA Masters as well. Like, look, there are teams that can play multiple different styles where it's like, hey, we're going to bring in, you know, the counter pick split push here, we're going to bring in whatever. But it's like, if you have a style that has worked and got you to this situation, what's the point in trying to change it now? Just show how strong you are at this. And we've seen it work for several years in the trot. I mean, even when we think back to like the style that we saw World Champions with IG and FPX had their set style where they didn't try and mess about with it. They were just like, this is the style that works, this is the style we're going to play. And I think it does have value, and GTZ are like, fantastic, we're just going to stick with it.
We'll have to wait and see. GTZ, they've got their style, they've got their playmaking ability. Can they make a stick, or would Orbit be sending Group A into Orbit into a little bit of chaos as well, as a lot of 1-1 scorelines start to creep up? We'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds. But for the moment, Roizen going towards that first strike makes a lot of sense. He's not really going to be under much threat from the Syndra in the first few stages, and again, not really dealing with something like a Jarvan or a Vi to kind of, in the early game jungle, so you're going to be pretty safe in the first few minutes of the game.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would be slightly worried about is, like, it actually was one of the few things we didn't see Europe pick up in MSI, which we saw a lot of like LPL and LCK teams do, is like using Zeri Lulu to go for like level 3 dives. Because Lulu offers so much when it comes towards like being able to polymorph someone that can potentially interrupt it, and the shields that she gives, even like movement speed to get out of bad positions. So like there is, and even the poke that she can offer in these early stages. So even just seeing time start up on this top side of the map, it is something that potentially you could see GTZ go for, but it was only something that we've really saw from like the top LPL and LCK teams.
Let's wait to see now how they want to go for a Prime, of course. Looking to see if he can be a bit of a nuisance on that top side, but not really going to gain much purchase from that. And he should have a pretty decent time of it. But like we said last time, CPM not really looking to win the lane. If he does, there's some serious issues happening with that Aatrox, unfortunately. But not going to see a huge amount of action, you would imagine, for anyone in this top side. But for now, both junglers starting on the top lane and going to be moving towards that bot lane. And it kind of shows where the priority is. And you talked about how the Wildcats did their homework the last time against Orbit, how Orbit really don't look towards those Rift Heralds. It'd be interesting to see if GTZ kind of do the same, or if they meet them at the challenge and say, look, we're happy to take you at this fight.
Yeah, I think this is a game where you have to play for those Rift Heralds as Orbit, like even if it's not your traditional playstyle. The fact you have a Ziggs, you immediately get towers off of it, and it becomes so necessary to even just like start to move Ziggs around the map, having access to both side lanes, like stalling at the games. Like it becomes so nice to be able to use as Ziggs. So I think they'll be putting pressure there, especially when they have Prime on this Aatrox as well. Just getting this Aatrox into the fight earlier is always going to work out well. But Roizen taking the brunt of the damage in this mid lane is not going to leave him the best of spots there to try and go for these early objectives, if that is going to be the case.
So, trying to see if Severo is going to be able to get onto this bot lane. Looks like he's trying to get all the way around. He should be spotted just now. And they are going to back away immediately. So Avra and Nightmares knowing exactly what's going on here. And look, I appreciate the creativity in the pathing, but like immediately you can see in the mid lane there that it was Heroic going super aggressive right in on top of the Ziggs and pushing him right behind the tower, because just good information here for GTZ.
I think the funny thing is, I don't think they actually spotted him. I think they were just playing super cautious, because you could see the pings as soon as Severo stepped out of the bush, being like, oh, there they are. Yeah. So I actually think it was just Avra and Nightmares playing that a little bit far back, maybe a little bit coddled after what happened in the last one, where they played that a little bit too aggressive. And now Time as well. I mean, he's done a full clear of his jungle. He's actually in a great spot. And now maybe he can get double scuttle here, as he's going to use the fact Heroics has control over mid to get up towards his top side.
And Roizen taking a huge amount of punishment right now. Just not really able to kind of go toe-to-toe here, and losing a lot of his mana, not only his health bar. So this is starting to become a bit more difficult here for the mid lane of Orbit. GTZ try and make their way around the map to make sure they're getting as maximum amount of value out of all this pathing and stuff like that. And that's the thing, is when you go for a strange path, as we did see from Severo, flash in, not going to be able to get much else out of Avra, I would imagine. The polymorph gets cleansed away, but they can put the exhaust down as well, and they can turn this fight back. Great kind of trigger discipline here from the GTZ bot side, not losing much outside of those, heal and exhaust.
Yeah, the fact that Avra managed to sidestep the CC from Neriman as well meant that he was able to just about escape away from that, and a lot of that damage, obviously, upfront burst is in Zaya's feather pullback, so not hitting that meant that immediately Orbit had to run for the hills, so nicely done. And again, we're kind of seeing GTZ, well, not so much in the last game, that it was going nice and smooth sailing for them in the early stages, but at least in this one, I mean, good control over mid lane for Heroic. The cull start for Avra, not really being punished either by Orbit. It's a great start for the Portuguese representatives.
Yeah, it really, really is. And this is the thing, you start to get... That's why it's so dangerous. Belief and hope is a dangerous thing, Dagda. But you do start to kind of see the momentum building for sides like GTZ, where expectations are going to be very low. You're not going to be expecting these guys to be taking down the Ultra League at #1 or the Super League at #2. They've done one of those two things, and if they can get another one, this is a very different kind of conversation we could be having about this group in a day or so's time, when we start to finish off, who's going to quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a fantastic moment for the Portuguese league. As we said, like, it's kind of been a while since we really saw the Portuguese league pop off. Like, I remember just Kick was kind of the big one that always stood out to me from way back like 2018, 2019. But
they're in the Ultra League now.
Yeah. So now GTZ. We'll have to see if they can try and be that upset here once again. Time spots at Severo.
Yeah, gonna see if we can jump into him though, as we will see the dragon being stopped though. It's a mountain dragon, which is one of the harder ones to take by yourself. It takes a hell of a lot of damage out of you in those moments because it is kind of just a big old chunky man. But see if anything else goes for it. And this is the thing though as well. Orbit, with those kind of weird path things on the camps from Severo, finds himself a little bit of XP down, not really in a position to kind of, you know, make those first early plays around the dragon. And he has to kind of cover for this now a lot. Yeah,
which is terrifying if you're up against a Nocturne who's now ahead, potentially going to hit that level 6. Will be spot on the ward in his bot side, but you can see how close he is. So he's going to have access to his top side jungle that's about to respawn. That'll give him level 6 just as the Rift Herald is coming up and available. And I think then if you can look for, you know, stun onto Ryzen, intermediate, well, follow up from Time, I think that's what Heroc's going for. Even just trying to make Ryzen nice and squishy, so he either has to reset or Time can now come into the mid lane.
Yeah, that should be 6. Paranoia hit there by Time, so priority mid, priority bot. You're getting yourself the dragon because you have level 6 first. This is the best kind of early game you could have for GTZ. They will get a ward here from the bot lane of Orbit, but there's not really a lot you can do. You just have to accept that that's the end of it. The dragon is being taken. That's a nice early dragon to be taken and confirmed here by the side of GTZ.
And I love when we get to see teams in EMEA Masters like having the forethought to be like, okay, we're going to snoop, right? Like Heroic Ulti Need was like, I'm never going to kill Ryzen. Like, there's not a hope, right? Yep. But it's either a case of Ryzen stays in mid lane on a very low health, and then we can dive in with Time, or Ryzen has to be pushed out and we get the dragon. So it's like, that ult still gets you a win. And I think that's where a lot of the teams that we're starting to see step up in EMEA Masters, you can see that thought process already coming through. And now, because you're like, okay, well, we won on bottom side. Well, obviously the camps for Time are coming back up, but starting on his Krugs here now gives him the position to be there if Prime and Severo try to go for a dive onto CPM if he's left underneath the tower alone.
And the thing is as well is that yes, they are winning on the top side, but look at the CS leads pretty much across the board there. Like, you got about 10 in bot lane, 10 in mid lane, 15 or so in jungle. Prime's trying to see if he can be a bit of a nuisance to maybe catch out Time on his red buff, but you can see right now, Orbit, they recognize this game kind of keeps going the way it's going. It's not going to look too great for them, and they need to try and make something different happen. They need to try and make some kind of move around the map that gives them an advantage.
But this is where we're talking about Orbit like wanting to get that Rift Herald, because you have this Ziggs, you can use it so effectively to take down towers in mid lane and crack open a game nice and early to give you access to gold and funnel the Ziggs, but you're just not really in a position because, again, like, you had this early success here for GTZ. Time is a level up over Severo, and even Nightmares, he's going to be closer to his level 6. Or actually, I was going to say he should be closer to level 6, but we're both going to hit level 6 as well in this mid lane. So you've already got GTZ in just a better position at the moment to keep going for this.
Yeah, I mean, only a couple of 100 gold in that dragon for the moment, but here we go. They're going to try and fully dive in on top of the Aatrox, just try and get all that priority. Lots of damage, and Prime does lose the World Ender, but I mean, this is again a good opportunity here with the Zeri making first move to say, look, we'll not only take the dragon, we'll also take the Rift Herald, because again, we talked about it, Orbit don't prioritize this. They're not a team that goes for this, which means they look very rusty at the setup for it.
Yeah, we're still seeing the same idea from GTZ though, right? Ult for objective. So you use the ult on top for Time. Like, you could have waited 10 seconds or so until CPM's ult was up, but it means that now you're actually pushed back as, oh boy.
Yeah, did not expect there to be a Vi right there. Avra will flash away though, and having the Lulu means he might be able to turn this one back around, taking a lot of damage. Needs to be very, very careful where he goes for it. The flash Q misses, and burst blood to Avra, picking up exactly where he left off against the Bisons. And now you can see Ryzen, oh, he got caught there. He might have to use his flash now in a second. He will, but he gets the unleashed power. Not quite able to go down though, not enough of a damage threat. But this is again GTZ coming out on top, and now Prime, he's forced to flash away, and CPN's looking for a solo kill.
No mana left on CPM though, which means he won't really be able to finish this one off, but bot lane has to be so careful. You got push in mid, Time is coming to the bot lane, and Nerman, he wants to try and get this wave crashed in onto the low health Avra.
Trying to punish him, but I mean, it's so difficult with the Lulu right there. Let's have a look at the replay, because again, they're setting this one up. They're moving everybody to try and kill off Avra.
Yeah, I think this was a bit of a mistake from Avra. You've already committed to your play on the top side, so you don't need to try and go for more here. And even pushing forward once more, like, he dashes in to make this play, but Severo, this is so sad, misses completely on the flash Q. and it means that he just ends up giving across a kill now to that Zeri.
Yeah, and that's just under 1,000 gold. Rift Herald was secured as well by time, so we'll have that in for the next fight, basically, to kind of create pressure in that mid lane, or maybe even just kind of funnel more gold into the Zeri, who's just already picking up the static shiv. I will say, while that was all happening, Nuraman was picking up plates in the bot side, so it's not a complete loss here for the side of Orbit, but I mean, those moments, those small little things that can lead to absolute disaster. And again, it could just be the small margins that lead from inches to miles.
And I think it will continue like this, right? Heroic, full control over mid. Now going to link up with Nightmares in time to get control over this jungle. And then you can't really enter this because the amount of damage that's there. You've got a Rift Herald on the way.
Yeah, they're going to try and fully commit now here onto the Xayah, who does let the feathers fly. Time, very happy to let that one go, and I don't know why he doesn't flash away there. You know the fear is coming, and now, again, we're seeing Orbit taking shortcuts, and it's really starting to sting them.
Yeah, the knock-up from Nightmares as well comes in perfectly there, so now this is the Rift Herald that we were talking about, and again, because you had that much control for GTZ in the bottom side jungle, Orbit can't really follow, so brilliant stuff from GTZ coming into this. Like, this is great understanding of how to play the map, and way better than Orbit really have.
Yeah, I mean, Heroic is doing just everything he needs to. He's keeping Roizen away. There is a ultimate committed here. They're going to try and burst down Heroic, who does not have flash, does not have the stat of the week until the very last second, and will go down. So Orbit find themselves on the board. Very well done for them. Avra hasn't gone back and spent that gold just yet, and that dragon has just spawned, but there is a TP for Heroic here.
Yeah, you have to try and make a play here as Orbit for this dragon. This is your moment where Heroic isn't in position. You have the TP still for Prime. I think you try and fight this 4 versus 5, but the longer you try and hold off on this, I mean, Heroic's going to be back. And with the position that they're in, with Roizen low on health, Severo not having ultimate, they decide, look, this is way too risky. We don't have the ultimates or the health bars. We need to try and do this.
Yeah, you don't have the Feather Storm. You don't have the Cease and Desist either. You do have a quickness available for your Rakan, but I mean, it's so difficult to really make this one work. You can see they're trying to catch somebody, maybe going for a little bit of a lazy knock together kind of setup. They are going to TP though on top of this one. Nightmare's trying to run away from this one, will flash away. No flash committed here from the Rakan. Didn't have flash to commit as they're going to try and go back on top of this one here. The Dragon confirmed here from GTZ as they now jump on the Prime, who goes into the World Ender, but he's not really got any place to go with it. In fact, just running away, using that extra movement speed. Here we go, they're going to jump down on top of it. Time! Definitely not recognizing that he was in a bit of a bad situation there altogether, as they do now know that the Rakan is a little bit in no man's land, but he should be able to get himself away. So Dragon confirmed, nobody goes down, but TPs and Summoner's burned.
Yeah, a bit of an overextension from time at the end there, but other than that, great play from GTZ once more. They understood, hey, look, we can try and push for this. We've already got a better position. Even CPM ulting to buy space on the Dragon, and now you get to reset. Nightmares and Evra should be able to hold this push as well. Might even get a bit more.
I mean, you got to be careful there, Niraman. Avra's very big, and he's going to keep pushing you down. Does have flash, does have cleanse, does have the Feather Storm. Can't say the most about his Rakan, and they're just kind of turning their ability to him. They're saying, I'm sorry, my love. You must die for me because you have nothing to protect you. Roizen in this bot side. But I mean, again, Orbit just overextending, biting off too much than they can chew.
And Heroic as well, matching the roam there from Roizen, so can't even stick around. I mean, maybe you can clear out the waves with the ultimate, but yeah, Terror gone. They're not even going to try.
I mean, Avra hasn't gone back since he picked up those kills. Like, Avra's huge right now. I would love to see how much gold he's sitting on before he goes back, but this is just an insane amount of, you know, kind of funneled gold going into the AD carry. Who carried GTZ in that last game?
I mean, the fact that his coal popped as well, you can see boots completed, BF, pickaxe, and a load of gold sitting in the back pocket of Avra as he went for that spending spree. Now, as well, with Rift Herald up in 50 seconds, he gets to plonk himself in mid lane, says, all right, come at me. Like, Roizen, what are you going to do? You should really be in the side lanes at this stage trying to match this, but the fact that GTZ have had full control, you're kind of late on these resets from Orbis.
And look, Heroic's just, again, playing smart about this. Sees that there was a Rakan behind him, goes, you know what, I'm not going to be lazy about this. I'm going to walk around, make sure I don't get caught out, in case for some reason there is just a random, you know, kind of Vi or Aatrox in a brush. But, I mean, with Rift Herald spawning in 20 seconds and 2 dragons already to the goods. You can see that Orbit just kind of struggling right now to try and make anything happen. We're going to see Time just jumping straight in because there's no tower. There's nothing to really kind of do here. You're going to have to try and flash away from this one, Nerman. He finally does end up getting the cleanse out, but again, it's too late. You have to flash away earlier, and they're going to be punished even more. Avra just trying to push in aggressively, knowing that he can take down Roizen, but the tower is still a massive deterrent. And this Aatrox is doing well, but it's completely isolated. It doesn't make a difference.
I mean, GTZ have stepped onto the main stage here at EMEA Masters and said, we're here to play. They get the early pickup against their neighbors in the Spanish team, and now going up against the first seed from the Ultra League. And the LPLOL is making a mockery of them, to be perfectly honest. Like, playing the map better, rotating into the perfect position. And Nerman here, like, way overextended. Thinks he's fine because he's got the support of his team, but you're 3v4, and GTZ know it. They immediately jump in here and make this happen. You can see Roizen desperately trying to catch up to the play, but it's already gone astray before he gets there.
It just feels like they're just half a second behind or half a play behind every single time. GTZ, and look, I'm not going to try and say that GTZ are the masterminds of all time. It's very kind of bog standard what they're doing, but it's the fact that they're just not being respected means that Orbit are getting caught so many times. The Rift Herald will be confirmed here by Orbit as they do get the resets back out onto the map a little bit quicker, but GTZ, they're in prime position to take this dragon fight in a minute 20.
I'm even looking at Prime in this top side as well, trying to see if he can crash this wave. Time is up there, but without ultimate. Looks like he's just going to, as you say, turn his focus to trying to get vision. Well, I was going to say vision down his spot side, but I mean, look at it. It's littered everywhere on the bottom side of the map. They're trying to clear it out at the moment for Orbit. You can see the pink ward just there, the spots at Nerman. Thank you very much, observers. Like, look how much is there for them. The entire place is lit up like a Christmas tree, and it's going to be gifts galore for GTZ if Orbit try and take the spot back.
And League of Legends, knowledge is a resource. Vision is a resource. Having knowledge of where everybody is going, what they're doing, when they sneeze, is important to you trying to take up the the win in the game. And it does feel like with all that kind of information being given over to GTZ so easily, I mean, it's hard to see how Orbit kind of come back into this unless it's a mistake or a godlike play coming out from Orbit or one of their carries.
Yeah, it's just... it's going to take a miracle here for Orbit, and it has to try and come from this Severo-Roizen combo. Like, if you can have a pick that immediately is followed up by the Ziggs, Nerman's there as well, like, that is where you can maybe, just maybe, get yourself back into this. But Avra is playing incredibly far back, not really given an opportunity, especially Nightmare is basically sitting in his back pocket for the majority of this game to make sure that he's always there to follow up in case something starts to go dead bad. And now it's the fight for mid-prior. Severo has the Rift Herald in his back pocket, can use that whenever he wants, but you can see GTZ, dragon spawned, they're going to move across, and it looks like it'll be a third dragon for the mid lane tower in trade.
Yeah, it looks like it. They could potentially still kind of push them back off of this one here. You can see Avra and Nightmare's kind of still hovering around it. There was a slight move from Prime to maybe go for it. They don't even have to give up this dragon or this tower just yet. Can just kind of let the Rift Herald do its thing and then back itself away, but I will say you would love to get this dragon fight just a little bit later if you're Orbit. You want Nerman to have the Navori quick plates. He's literally got everything component-wise for it, apart from a Caulfield's Warhammer. But now they're just kind of changing it up, saying, look, we don't even have to go for this. We can fully commit here onto Prime. He does get himself over the wall. Won't be able to kind of continue that one there, but the World Ender has been taken. Now Time looking to see if they can make this one work. Heroic TPing down the backside. The dragon is secure, but can they get the fight afterwards? That is the question. There's going to be the flash away as they look to try and put Paranoia down. They're going to completely isolate this Vi as Avra just gets on a 1v1 situation. They're going to try and jump into Nerman, but he will not be able to get any more damage down. Now they can turn their focus back onto the jungler as he goes down. You can see the flash has to be burned by the Rakan. And yes, it's a dragon, but look at these health bars. They're so low. They're so scattered right now. They don't really know where they want to go. And now, oh, Heroic almost landing down to Scatter the Weak. Would have been Roizen's death sentence. But at the end of it all, it's still the LPLOL #1 seed coming out on top.
I mean, they do get the dragon for Orbit, so at least they stop some of the... Oh, hang on. I was going to say, at least they stopped the dragon stacking. The GTZ was there, but as you say, the kill going over, mid lane tower going down, and even Nerman trying to see if he can get some play on towards this top side only means you're in a later reset, so you can come back out of the map as GTZ and get that top lane turret. I think it was a mistake from Heroic going to the top side. I think you just try and fight here, but they were like, oh, maybe we can get the pick and still TP in. But this is a great separation. So the ult prevents that follow-up that we were talking about onto the Vi. Sorry, the Nocturne ult prevents the Vi follow-up. And then you get CPM also comes in to separate out Orbit as well. So the entire fight is GTZ like buying multiple different angles for Avra, so he can always focus on one person and use the fact that he's got, well, now 5 kills in his back pocket to set himself up.
Yeah, and the big thing as well is that Norman used both summoners, thought he used both summoners. He actually used his ult and his cleanse. He won't have the cleanse available to him. It was actually the Rakan who used his flash to try and get away. Royzen flashed away as well. Prime lost his in the top lane as well. This game is starting to get difficult, but I will say for Prime, they have got some decent push. If they're able to get a team fight, if they're able to get one good fight out of them, they can bring this one right back in their favor. They are down only about 3,000, so it's not the world's worst kind of setup. And again, it's all basically localized into this area.
It's very much a case of, can you try and get the Prime in a position where you can actually threaten turrets, or use the fact that you send, as you can see, like Heroic and CPM to deal with Prime to then immediately jump on with Severo and Royzen onto someone. But Time and Nightmares are doing a good job of like linking up and moving in with Avra here to get vision. It prevents Severo from really getting into a position that's going to surprise GTZ, and it's about controlling space at this Baron. So then you can, I'd be very scared if I was Royzen here. The fact that he's that far pushed up to clear out these waves, like Time and Heroic, if you get a stun, immediately that's a dead six.
Yeah, and you can see just the vision control coming out here from GTZ, just making sure that they don't have as many or any at all, to be perfectly honest, control over what will be the entrances into this river. Orbit being forced back right now. They know they just can't really kind of make this one happen. Popping down the Nightmare to see if they can maybe catch out a little bit of a lazy rotation, but again, just using all of this priority to then get the top tower and potentially get themselves the Baron start as well. You can see Prime now realizing he's kind of isolated away and they're not really in a position to TP him back up.
Yeah, he's going to have to start the slow walk. I don't think they're going to complete this Baron take. Oh, actually, Gypsy caught out.
Gypsy has been caught out. They're going to try and maybe fully commit onto him now. He doesn't have flash, and he's going to get stunned up as well. He's going to be taken out, and that's just a really, really good pick coming out here from the side of GTZ. And now, without that engage, without the wards, to be perfectly honest, it's so hard to walk into this. You're going to have to try and go in blind, and look at the damage.
Now, ult for CPM, though, and you need to rely on a stun from Heroic to really start this off. This is where it's actually a little bit risky from GTZ. Royzen can just poke you down here.
Can maybe, if the poke lands, that's the question. That's ZeriW starting to do work. There we go, flash in with Heroic, does catch out on the one. They're going to try and kill off the Ziggs, and they will. Avra did flash over, but a little bit too far forward. He does have the Lulu, but can he get out and away? Neriman does try and make it work. Finally takes down the AD carry, but what is left for him and his team? Prime does have a little bit of damage left in him, but I don't think he's going to have enough to take them all down. There's a good spell shield as well. It ends up being a 5-for-1 at the end of it all, and GTZ are looking so good in this game.
They get the fight that they wanted. It was a little bit risky, but the flash stride breaker for Time is able to just barely get them in range. And now TP's coming in. I don't think this is going to be for the Baron. This is more so just a case of we need to now establish vision on this bottom side and get control of this bot lane so we can look towards this next dragon.
Next dragon up in 30 seconds. You did lose the Zeri, so a big shutdown went over to Nurman. That's going to definitely help mitigate some of that, but let's have a look at how this fight goes, because again, GTZ, like you said, they didn't have CPM's ult, so they have to be a little bit more crafty.
Yeah, they didn't really have a great way to engage it, especially with Time's ult being down as well. So I was trying to watch Heroic, but instead Time is just like, no, look, leave it to me. Flashes in, stride breaker onto Royzen to get the slow and the immediate stopwatch after. But as he called in the fight, Oshin, Avra goes way too deep then on this one. Has the follow-up there from Severo and also the Zaya to finish off, but at this stage you've thrown everything in the kitchen sink and you've still got members of GTZ standing. They're able to come in, the heals, the shields, everything you need to try and finish off this fight.
Really well played there from GTZ, but now Orbit, they're looking to try and maybe call the bluff, but they can't really go for this one here. Now they're going to try and jump into Nightmare and on top of Avra, but can they kill them off? That is the question. No, they're too far separated. Heroic's not even a part of this. It's only a 5v5 right now. Never mind, it's everybody going down. Double kill coming in here for Avra, and Orbit tried to send it up into space, and they ended up crashing and burning back down to Earth.
I mean, GTZ again commanding in this mid to late game. Now going to be able to pick up a Baron for themselves. The team fighting has been spectacular. They could even turn over towards the Dragon if they want to, but looking at Heroic, who's already started taking chip shots at this mid lane turret, they know they just want to get as much gold into their pocket as possible.
Yeah, they're delaying it again. We saw them do that in the last game as well. They delay the Baron take as long as possible just so they know they can get the most out of it. But let's have a look at this one again, because it's Orbit just kind of saying, look, we can get the flank in here with the Rakan, but they're just so far behind.
Yeah, I think they were trying to get the double TP out, but they end up just putting themselves into a position where they're getting flanked from multiple different angles then. Avra again hopping over the wall, he gets the safety. The combo that we were talking about for Severo and this Ziggs not working out whatsoever because you're just getting blinded every time as this Ziggs and don't know exactly where you're supposed to be following up to. So across the board, GTZ, these fights have worked out fantastically. They've got the Baron, they're going to get this Dragon, and then it's just a matter of taking these last remaining outer turrets and keeping Orbit, well, stuck in their own base.
I mean, yeah, then not even on liftoff right now, but it's just, I mean, look at this. CPM just kind of saying, look, I can just keep you as far away from everybody else as possible. That is a 6-level difference between the Rakan and the Sion. That's how far behind he is it. And I mean, look, we kind of look holistically. This game is definitely GTZ's to lose as of right now. But, I mean, respect's got to be put onto the LPLOL right now. They are coming in as just kind of this, you know, very much seen as a minor region league, not really, you know, kind of someone to contest with. But now they're coming in and taking scalps left, right, and center. Yeah, and you're going to have to see now if you can maybe keep Nerriman's scalp to himself. CPM is going to be stunned up, but he's going to be able to back away as mid lane time already pushing in. Pushing in, making sure that he keeps the Prime away from the rest of his team. They still have this cannon minion and will be joined by his friend in just a moment. Again, it's kind of the issue when you go with the Ziggs. He's great at wave clearing until the Baron buff comes in. That extra magic resistance, but time just being a nuisance, having that paranoia, knowing that he can join a fight at any second, just makes it so much harder for the side of Orbit to try to make this one work for themselves. I wasn't sure if we'd actually see GTZ just try and like set themselves up in the mid lane to get that mid lane tower first, because oftentimes it's kind of like we get bot lane turrets so then we can threaten Baron afterwards. But oh, actually Prime, I don't know he'd be able to back away. But yeah, GTZ anyway, they're just gonna push forward. It doesn't matter about the ins and outs of the theory here when you can just go smash and go through the bot lane turret anyway. Yeah, it's like, shut up, nerds. Bang! That's all it really is. But look, they won't be able to break up the base on this particular push. They will get Heroic kind of TPing back in onto this mid lane. Maybe they're going to go for another kind of push. But I mean, look at this defensive vision. Yeah, like it's just, you're trying to keep it all going, but it's just to try and keep yourselves alive. Yeah, I mean, it's this wave or bust for GTZ. They really want to try and crack it open, which is why they had to rogue TP in. Wave standing 5 members down here. GTZ, they really want it, but I don't think they're going to get it. No, I don't think so either. It's so close. The cannon nearly got it, but we are going to see the ultimate come straight big on top of it. Prime, he's dead. The tower gets taken as a consolation prize. They've even got a wave in mid lane to get people in and out as they please. He dropped down and ignite onto a Sion, but he does not care right now. GTZ, it took a little while. They definitely paid respect to the amount of damage that Orbit will be able to throw at them, but they've after cracking open the base on 2 different fronts. CPM has a TP as well. Yeah, I think that's exactly what the call is going to be. Get mana, get back into the thick of things as GTZ. Don't even need them. They immediately get the mid lane tower. Now you can potentially have CPM join them in the base, and that's going to be it. 2 inhibitors down, and only a matter of time until those next Barons and Cloud Drakes are up, and Orbit's got not much left in the base. I mean, great games coming out here from GTZ. 2 back-to-back, and I mean, look, this kind of form is exactly what you want to be seeing from, you know, up-and-coming teams, and I'm really impressed with the likes of, you know, like Avra and CPM just being able to kind of do their roles, you know? Like, again, Avra 2 games in a row was hard carrying these games on Zeri. We'll see if he's got anyone else in the tank should it get banned away, but CPM on this Sion has just been a wall, literally and figuratively in every single sense, because he's just done his job so well. Yeah, and I mean, this team has been very strong domestically. When you look over the last 2 splits, like 12-2 for them in spring, then they come in 3-0 the finals in spring. They come in 13-1 in summer, and then 3-0 the finals once again. Like, GTZ have put on an absolute stormer when it came to domestic, but when it came to EMEA Masters, I mean, they failed to make it out of play-ins, and that was kind of their season done with in spring. To then have them coming in now, making it to the group stage, and putting on the barn burner of a game that we're seeing at the moment, like, this is them making a statement in Group A. It really is. They're going to try and fully commit now on top of it. CPM can go that deep, because look, who's going to kill him? They don't have the damage to kill this guy right now, and if your Zaya's not there, she's the only real danger. So now we're going to see Aru go down on the time. They're going to try and maybe commit onto this, but again, it's the front line. She's not really getting the damage down to the right people. They're going to commit the ultimates, and finally he'll go down. The Dustblade proc goes in, but Avra flashes forward. He wants more. They pop down the Mega Inferno Bomb to try and get some more damage down. They will get the Resurrection coming out here, but a double kill comes out for Heroic. They had the GA from Avra. They knew they could be aggressive because they knew just how far ahead they were. there.
And now they want to try and keep going. They want to see if they're able to crack open this base fully. Time stepping forward is alone, but Avra waiting in the back lines with Nightmare. They're trying to, as Orbit, clear out these waves that are crashing into the turrets, but that just leaves space now for a quick reset. 30 seconds onto the Baron, and Orbit, they can't leave their base right now. There's just too many super creeps.
Triple inhib, and let's have a look at this one here, because again, CPN goes way too far forward, and when the Zayak does arrive, that's when CPN's life's in danger.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a bounce house for CPN, right? Ends up going in that little bit too far forward. You'll see it in just a moment. And then it's just knock-up after knock-up as he starts to go forward. So immediately it starts off with the knock-up coming through from there. You get the Ziggs, then you get the pullback from Prime, then you get the knock-up from Severo. He doesn't get to move, even with that ultimate coming through, but Abra playing right on the edge of things here. Know he has the GA available, knows that with the darkness coming through there, won't be able to have much follow-up from Rising because he's not going to know where to aim. So Abra really making a play there to make sure that they're actually able to get this tower cracked open. And as we said, too many creeps in the base for Orbit means that GTZ get to explore the Baron.
You get the Baron, you get the Cloud Soul, which is even better for the likes of people like Zeri and Nocturne. This is just insane. They're now level 16, so extra range on that Paranoia. You're going to be able to come in from all different angles, and they're just running in straight away. They found Nuraman. He does have Flash, he does have Cleanse. He finally flashes, does get the ultimate off, but now all of his escape tools have been used. Can he survive? That is the question. A flash over a charm. Resurrection going to have to come in here for time. But I mean, have you got enough time? That is the question here for the side of Orbit. They're going to try and defend this base, but the super minions, everything are there. They're going to try and fully commit on top of this Zeri, but I don't know if they're going to get the damage to kill him off. Eventually, they try and burn him down, but they just haven't got it. Severo goes golden, but only to delay the inevitable. A double kill coming in for time, and GTZ are 2-0 in Group A.
That is not a sentence I expected to be hearing coming into today. GTZ, I was looking at them thinking, you know what, the Portuguese represents, we haven't really seen anything from the LPLOL for a while really step up and be accounted for at EMEA Masters, but they are righting the wrongs here coming into summer 2023. What a spectacular performance from this squad.
Yeah, really, really well done there from GTZ. And look, again, you're coming into your final game of the day against Wildcats. You're already 2-0. Even if they lose this, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it really, really isn't. So, really well done for there from GTZ. And for the LPLOL as a whole, the Portugal scene, this is massive for them. Like fair enough, you could have had questions about their group and play-ins, the people they played in the play-ins playoffs, sure. But they've taken out 2 major ERLs back to back, like not even just one game between. They've taken out the Super League number 2 and the Ultra League number 1. I mean, this is you got to put respect on it.
And that's the thing now. You've given yourself such a buffer coming into your next few games, right? Because as you said, even if you do lose to Istanbul Wildcats, you then come into your next and you're like, right, well, you run the gauntlet because you end up playing everyone twice, but you've now got that one leg up over everyone else. That just makes things significantly easier for you. You just don't have to worry so much about like, oh, well, you know, we lose or drop a game here. Well, you can still get into that second place slot. You can still push yourself all the way. And honestly, I'm going to be keeping my eyes on that game against Wildcats because we saw Wildcats having a bit of a struggle in the early stages. But if GTZ are out to play like this, where they're playing calm, they're playing towards their win conditions, they're playing the map well, but I mean, Istanbul Wildcats would definitely have their run for their money.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we can kind of look at some of the highlights as well from this particular game. But for GTZ, I think what's so impressive for me was that it never felt out of their control. It never felt like at any point it was like, oh, you know, this, that, and the other. Sure, small mess-ups every now and again, but it didn't really feel like at any stage of the game that Orbit had a chance to really come back into it and question them.
Yeah, and I think a huge amount of that was, you know, Heroic getting full control against Rosen in the mid lane as well. And then having the opportunity here where you get this very quick early clear. You hit the level 6 faster as the Nocturne, and then you're constantly playing off of this. I mean, the ultimates coming through from this Nocturne were so good at dismantling like Ryzen, trying to follow up on Severo. Neramin wasn't really sure how aggressive he could play forward because he lacks that vision, and it's just the ability to throw comms into disarray in crucial moments like this were so important. Plus time even flashing forward here to get the engages. So many of these plays were crucial to the success of GTZ.
Yeah, they really, really were. And look, you know, Avra, you get rid of the Zeri off him. You can't let him have this champion anymore. I'm sorry, like, it's such an issue. He feels so comfortable with it, and it does feel like it is kind of the linchpin of GTZ. And look, I'm not trying to say they should lose, but I need to see more from Avra. If he can kind of put this kind of performance on multiple different AD carries, this is someone that I'm going to be keeping a very keen eye on even regardless of how far this team goes, because this is kind of, this is hyper carry kind of levels of performance from the AD carry.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're able to step up like this in very high pressure situations like you're seeing, it's absolutely incredible. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what GTZ can do, but it's also kind of heartbreaking here for Orbit, right? Because that's game 1 against Istanbul Wildcats. We saw them at least step up to the plate in the early stages, but then fell apart come the mid game. Now they come into this series or this game as well, and they're kind of just blown out of the water, to be honest, by GTZ. So coming in as the Ultra Liga #1 representative, there's a lot of stakes and everything that comes with that. A lot of people are kind of keeping their eye on you to be like, well, what are you going to show up? Like the Polish League has always had very big names behind it and a very big brand coming into EMEA Masters, but unfortunately for them, they just haven't quite been able to get themselves up and off the ground.
No, they really, really haven't. And look, this could be one of the biggest changes, if you will. But that is the time we have myself and Dagda on this cast. We're going to leave you to a break. And when we return, it will not be us. It will be the fantastic Initialize and Trouble to bring you to our final 3 games of the day. So until then, we're going to send a quick break and we'll see you soon.